Geek Gang, what's poppin'? It's Adonis. We are back, and today we are doing our official rankings of all the MCU titles that came out in 2021. So buckle up. What do you think is going to be on top? And let me know your list in order from 9 to 1 in the comments down below. Are you ready? Let's go. Now, starting at number 9 is what just ended, which was Hawkeye. Now, Hawkeye was an interesting one. I didn't really know how I was going to feel. Obviously, it being the newest one of the MCU shows, I had hopes for it because there were some other shows on this list that I was not excited about and end up loving. And I thought this would be another one. Turns out that the show just kind of was flat. There was some really interesting moments. Obviously, we had some really cool reveals. One being introduction of Kingpin back into the official MCU. Other than that, Kate Bishop was enjoyable. Hawkeye's character, I loved what they did with him. And it was really cool that we got Clint Barton's story post-Endgame, feeling his thoughts about Nat and what had transpired and him dealing with this grief, and obviously bringing in her sister Yelena. It left for some really interesting storytelling, but I just felt like it never got there. And I'm not sure if it was just how it was trying to tell all these different story threads in the show, but it just felt like episode 6 had so much to do and it just couldn't properly deliver on each of those individual story threads for me. So I don't know, but let me hear your guys' thoughts on Hawkeye. Did you like it? Did you not? In the comments down below. Now at number 8, we have Marvel's What If. Now Marvel's What If had some really interesting stories, some really interesting episodes, and at first it didn't seem like anything was really connected until we found out that they were connected. And while it was interesting and fun, and I love the animation in it, again, it just kind of left me at, Now there was a couple episodes that had a lot of weight, like the Doctor Strange episode, but besides that, it wasn't really that important to me as a show. And week to week, I wasn't really that excited about watching it, but I did anyways because you never really know with MCU. But ultimately, cool show, entertaining. It's at number 8 for me. Now, number 7 is Black Widow. Now, admittedly, I just got finished watching Black Widow yesterday. Main reason being, 1, I was doing this video, but 2, a lot of people were saying because I didn't watch the Black Widow movie that I wasn't gonna fully understand what was going on in Hawkeye. And to that, I had said in the comments that that's not necessarily true. Kevin Feige has been on record multiple times stating that you do not have to watch everything in the MCU for you to get what's going on in the MCU. And they've actually done that multiple times in movies where they kind of re-explain certain things just because they're assuming that you didn't watch everything. And this was exactly the same scenario. When I watched Black Widow, 1, I definitely enjoyed the movie, but 2, it didn't really add anything to me for the Hawkeye show that the Hawkeye show didn't explain. So I was like, okay, like the Hawkeye, I could watch it standalone and it would make sense if I didn't see Black Widow. But speaking of Black Widow, I did like what they were doing with her character, introducing her, quote unquote family. But at the same time, I really felt that movie should have been in Phase 3, like at the beginning of Phase 3. It felt really out of place. It just felt like that era of movie. While I enjoyed it, I still think, and this is just a personal opinion of mine, that Black Widow as a character, and maybe it's just Scarlett Johansson as an actress, in that role, it's just really hard for her to be the lead for me. It just doesn't really, I don't know if she's missing something or the character itself just doesn't have enough to carry the movie for me. But ultimately, it was a pretty entertaining time. I did like the other characters, and Yelena, to me, was definitely the comedic standout, and I do like her character quite a bit. So for me, that lands Black Widow at number 7. Number 6, The Eternals. Now, The Eternals was really interesting because we got introduced to essentially 10 new characters, and it added to the lore of the MCU, but it didn't really feel like an MCU movie, and that gave people a very bifurcated feelings about this movie. And personally, I like the switch of tone. I like the let's not MCU this so much. It actually kind of felt more like a DC movie, to be completely honest with you. I did like how they introduced the Eternals and the different characters, obviously how they introduced the scale of the MCU, the Celestials, the creation idea behind how the MCU universe was created. I like the lore aspect, essentially. We did see probably the coolest speedster fight that I've ever seen in any medium, which was really dope. However, there was a lot that I still desired in the film. I feel like there was some things that just felt a little too dragged out, and maybe could have been done in a different way that was a bit more enjoyable. But overall, good movie, and it's on my list at number 6. Number 5 is Loki. Now, Loki was one of those shows that I was really interested in because I really enjoyed Loki in the MCU up to this point. And I was really concerned of how they were going to reintroduce him based on what we saw in Endgame. We knew he was still alive. We knew that he was, he took the Tesseract and dipped. So we knew he was alive still. We just didn't know how that was going to play out. And yes, while this show did kind of have a massive impact on the MCU, and following suit of Phase 1 of Marvel with Loki being kind of the catalyst for what happened in the Infinity Saga, this is setting up a new saga for MCU, and Loki is kind of that, tipping point of, hey, we're exploring this whole new world now, and it's because of Loki. It's kind of interesting that he's again the catalyst for the new direction of the MCU. And while there was a lot to love in the show did feel a tad bit slow at times. There was a lot of fan service, but I think the story itself was just kind of lackluster. The emotional connection between Loki and is it Sylvie or Sylvie or is it Sylvie? But that relationship was really awkward at times. I didn't really believe their emotion. There was an entire episode that didn't even need to be in there. It needed to be like 10 episodes, essentially. I felt like it kind of rushed at certain points, and some episodes, while I was expecting more from, didn't deliver. Obviously, this is my personal opinion, but I felt like it was reliant on more spectacle and connective tissue to the MCU versus a more compelling story and acting. And I'm telling you right now, personally, I feel like the fight sequences were trash. They were trash. But with that being said, I did enjoy it. It just wasn't my favorite MCU property of the year. Number 4, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, this show was something that I actually was not looking forward to because these two characters are actually my 2 least favorite characters in the Infinity Saga. Primarily because Bucky to me was just kind of like Ben Stein. It's very kind of like, meh, like bland, flatlined, monotone. And to be honest, Sam just was like a weird sidekick to me. Like, he was corny at times and I can't get past Papa Doc. That's all I see. So when this show started, I didn't really know the direction they were trying to take. And man, I loved the story that they told. And on top of that, the action was actually really good. I think as far as action-wise so far in the new MCU TV shows, it's probably the best. But the dynamic between Bucky and Sam was awesome. The on-screen chemistry was great. It actually made me really like Bucky and actually really like Sam. I didn't think I was going to like him at all. I was like, I don't know. I like Sam a lot. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care for the new cap, helmet, visor, glasses thing. I felt like they could have done a little bit better with the whole swimming goggle thing. I'm not really a fan of that, but I'm like, y'all could have done something different, like a clear visor that didn't have this like goggle situation. Could have been a clear visor with, info on it. Like, you could have done something different. The goggle thing, I just wasn't digging it. Now we're in the top 3. The top 3. So number 3 is Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was one of those movies that when I saw the trailer, I wasn't really that excited. I didn't think the trailer sold it for me. I thought it was kind of cheesy, kind of corny. And then I ended up watching the movie when it dropped here in Australia. And let me tell you, I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I felt they did a really good job. You could tell the care that was involved in this movie had the same level of care and focus that I got when I watched Black Panther. It seemed like everybody there knew that this movie was important, knew that, this needs to have a particular message and showcase a particular culture in a way that is, that hasn't really been represented in the way that they have liked in the past. And it was so enjoyable, and the chemistry between Awkwafina and Simu was so awesome to me. It was so believable, and I'm so glad there was no shipping going on. They're best friends, and it was just an awesome movie. I enjoyed it from top to bottom. It was the first time ever that I was like, you know what? We could probably get a live action Dragon Ball. There was so many cool Dragon Ball references in there. I thought it was so dope. I don't know. I thought it was great. The acting was awesome. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? That movie was fantastic. I absolutely love that movie. Shang-Chi, number 3. We are at the final 2, baby. Number 2 on this list. You know it. WandaVision. Now, obviously, this is a TV show at number 2 on this list, on a list of shows and movies, which is saying a lot. We're in this time right now where TV shows have come to this golden age because they get the funding and the actors that you get in movies for TV. And man, this show was so amazing. Now, just like I said, like the Falcon and Winter Soldier, these 2 characters were like my 3 and 4 of characters I was not interested in the MCU. I felt like Wanda was a waste. I felt like Vision was a waste, like just kind of like there for plot. And I was just not invested in them until I started watching the show. And creatively, it was done so brilliantly, and how they tied it into her past. And you got to understand why each episode was a sitcom genre. And I was like, why each episode is it a different era of TV? And you figure that out later, that's what she watched when she was a kid. She was into America TV. I just thought it was brilliant. And the relationship between her and Vision was so dope. Like, you really felt it. Her trying to just keep this, relationship and her world alive, and what she wanted, the lengths that she would go to establish that and create children out of nowhere. Like, it was just kind of insane to think about that she was that powerful, but what she was going to do for love, it was just an amazing story to me. And again, creatively incredible. It was just one of those shows that I was not expecting, and ended up loving her as an actress. It really showcased her as an actress of what she could actually do. You're like, Jesus Christ. WandaVision number 2. What do you guys think? And obviously, number 1 on this list, Spider-Man No Way Home. I don't even know what else to say. Right now, as of filming this, we are in that non-spoiler territory still because it just came out last weekend. So people that haven't seen it yet, I don't want to completely spoil it for you. But just know, this movie is how you do nostalgia. It is the way you do nostalgia that ties into the actual story. It's not just there for fan service. It's amazing. This movie is so good. It is this is the end game of Spider-Man movies. That's all I can really say without spoiling it. But as a standalone Spider-Man movie, it's fantastic. But if you've seen Spider-Man in general, any Spider-Man movie in general, if you've seen all of them, this movie has way more weight because of it. In the same way that Endgame has the same amount of weight if you've seen all of the MCU movies and you've got to know these characters and blah. It has that same feeling to it. But man, this movie is fantastic. It does not feel like 2.5 hours. Tom Holland delivers. And Willem Dafoe, oh my God. He is just incredible in this film. It was one of those things that you just forgot how amazing of an actor he is. And when he switches on the Goblin, you're just like, oh my goodness, this man's got it. Like, he's just amazing. Loved it. Heartfelt moments, real tragedy in this film. And it's essentially the end of the origin story of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which you kind of get in this movie of like, oh, damn, the last 3 movies was actually his origin story. Fantastic. It was so good. But Spider-Man No Way Home takes the number 1 spot on my list. But I want to know your list. Let me know in the comments down below. 1, do you agree with my list? But 2, what is your list? 9 to 1, rank them in order. Let's have a conversation down there. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we might have to do this next year. We might have to do this next year for 2022. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Geek Gang, we out this time.